Green. Hey, hello everybody. Yes, it's Thursday. It is 9, so it's UK Cowboys time. And before I get into it all, it is of course, Paul, the season 4 finale. That's it. Season 3 finale. When it's season ahead there. So that's it. So next week should be exciting. But joining us, because it's the special occasion, why would we do this without somebody who we love, the great and powerful Cal Yeomans?
Woohoo! What's happening? I don't know if I've ever been called that in any aspect of life, regardless of what it may be. So I appreciate that, Mike. Thanks for having me on. Paul, great to see you as well. I see I'm the only one without a 2022 draft cap on. I probably should have grabbed one on the air, but now that's okay. I'll just be a little left out this time around.
Yeah. We never plan the attire. It just sort of happens. Everyone logs in and it's like we always say that this show is kind of like a duck on the pond. That everybody's like, oh yeah, look at this, coordinated. It's like, no, underneath before things happen, it's just chaos.
Yeah, that's the thing. People who watch these shows, and I was like this all the way through, and I still am like this to a certain extent, but they don't understand like the chaos and the hectic moments right before you go on air, or like as you're on air, like what's happening. Somebody like I'll be watching a broadcast and somebody with me will be like, man, that guy just can't speak today. And it's like, yeah, it's probably because there's 400 people talking in his ear at one time, or maybe his mic went out and he thought it went out, or like stuff like that. Things happen like crazy in this business. So I believe you, man. I believe that there's some hectic side of it as well.
It's literally happened where, like the intro that we've got, and your face pops up on there. That like it's been on that point, and we're just like the whole thing has collapsed, and there's like nobody there. And we're like, what are we gonna do? And then literally just as it's at the last 4 seconds, everybody's there. And we're like, hello.
Hey everybody, we've got such a great crew here. Chris Beam is actually in the other room. He's probably hearing every word that I say here. And he on our shows, I mean, the amount of times that he's gotten like on these headsets, these headphones, because I'm in our podcast studio, the amount of times he's gotten on here and just been like, Kyle, go, stop talking, shut up, like just do it, like the show's happening. Like I guarantee it's more times than I could count.
Yeah, I mean, we got like the private chat that we use and the stuff that pops up there. It's just like, oh my god. But yeah, it is by the way, because we got you on for two reasons. One, we're going to talk just about the safety position. So the safety players that are on the roster, which finishes the positional breakdown series that we're doing. And also, it's the final episode of season 3. So we had to get somebody on, and who better than the MVP of Dallas Cowboys media?
Oh, stop! You can't call me that. There's way too many cool people here other than me. I'm excited about it though. That's the thing is like we're looking up and yesterday made it a month until the regular season, or not the regular season, until the preseason starts on August 13th. So I mean the fact that we're less than a month away now from our first game, whether it be preseason or not. We're less than 60 days away from the opener against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, I mean, it's coming. It's happening. We leave for Oxnard here in about 2 weeks or just under 2 weeks. So the camp is coming. And, yeah, it's time to get ready. You're wrapping up your season, which means we're just about to get set to go again, right?
Yeah. We are on Isaac Alacon days before.
Nice.
Yeah, so Mike's been working hard on the social media aspect of sites. Like he's been looking up all different players of all the numbered jerseys, like as a countdown and stuff like that. Yeah. So he's been keeping himself very busy. So he has.
It can be quite tricky to find pictures of undrafted free agents in a Cowboys jersey.
Yep, not easy. Not easy.
No,
not at all.
And sometimes you just get like a side shot or a back shot, and you're like, "That's what I'm using."
We're doing a countdown on the website where we go through every picture or every jersey number of the past, and we get the all-time grade at each jersey number. And it's crazy. It's crazy how many jersey numbers like just don't have great names to them. We gotta put some guys in different spots and let them kind of take over. But I mean, there's one that we had recently. Yeah, 57 is one that I wrote, and you really don't have a great 57 in Cowboys uniform. And yeah, there's one we're gonna have, and this is just looking ahead. There's one we're gonna have where like Jason Witten wore number 49 in a practice one time, and he'll be on the like.
And then you could use him at number 17 as well. So
yeah, exactly.
See, this is a big question I've actually got this asked about with regards to like numbers that have little history. Do you think it may be actually very like for players that are coming into the Cowboy squad? It's like, you know what, I want to pick that number because I want to leave a legacy with that number.
Yeah.
I mean, I could like having that specific number with very little history at all. You can rewrite history with that team. I mean, if I was me, I would love to kind of like put my stamp in the team. Like stand out, you know.
I tell you, when I was going through it, I tell you a tricky one to find, which is I don't know why, which is ironic. Was I think it was either 68 or 69. I was just like this, and literally the best player, if you could look for a number, was Brandon Knight. And you're just like,
Yep, that was one of the articles I wrote. That was my other example I was thinking of. Was Brandon Knight was the best of the best?
Was it 69? Was it 69?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was. And I was just like, wow, this is really tricky to find.
Yeah,
surely one of the guys in the Great Wall of Dallas had like 68 or 60. Really?
No, wow. There was a backup player.
So I had George Hegeman as 69.
Yeah.
And then Henry Melton was the blast from the past.
Yeah. Henry Melton.
And that was the one I think we used on ours because I was just like, there we go.
Yep.
Because he's got a Super Bowl ring, but as a backup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What number was Doug Free again? Doug Free was 68, was he not?
No. I'd have to.
What was Doug Free? That's a good question. Yeah, he was 68. But I was saying 69 was that number.
Yeah.
I didn't write the 68 article.
But we're not talking about the 68s. We're on to the safeties. But we will do the news and updates because there's been a bit of news while we've been waiting. So first of all, we will hit on our news and updates. The first news, which we wrote an article ourselves, ironically, about this about 3 weeks ago, about how Dalton Schultz isn't looking to sign a long-term deal. It was in, it was out. He was away from the team. Then he came back for OTAs, and it's all up in the air. The deadline hits tomorrow. But the news from what we're hearing, Kyle, I don't know if you can fill the gap, is that they're not looking at this stage for that to be completed. He's going to be playing on the franchise tag.
Yeah, it really looks like the numbers just aren't going to line up for both parties. I think Dalton Schultz wants to be a Cowboy long term. I think
Yeah.
his whole standpoint is he wants a long term deal, whereas Dallas is the one that's really the team that's a little bit hesitant to make that deal, specifically just because of the tight end position and because of really unless you are one of those upper echelon tight ends. Just how much or just how valuable you are is still out to dry to a certain extent, because Dalton Schultz has had 2 great seasons in a row. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's not like it's been anything that's special that Travis Kelce's or the George Kittles or the Zach Ertz of the world are putting together. He's not up into that upper echelon of the tight end room just yet. But that's
so where would you rank him then?
What was that?
Where would you rank him then, you personally?
I don't think he's too far off of that. I would still say he's a top 10 tight end in the league at this moment, but he's not going to be a game changer. Travis Kelce or George Kittle, they can win you a game by going 150, 200 yards. Dalton Schultz hasn't had a 100-yard game so far in his career. I mean, he is a drop down. He is a safety blanket of a player, which still has value in its own right. Don't get me wrong. He still has value because he has 80 plus receptions. He has 800 plus yards. Only 2 tight ends in Cowboys history have had those numbers, and that's Jason Witten and Dalton Schultz. So he has value, but he doesn't have the league-wide value that a lot of these other tight ends that have made a name for themselves recently at least have brought to the table to this point. Now, he could prove everybody wrong. He could go out this year and have 1,500 yards receiving and blow up into a top 3 or top 4 wide or tight end in the league. But to this point, that just doesn't seem likely. And I think the Cowboys are looking at that as we've got other spots on the roster that are taking up this bigger slice of the pie, as Stephen Jones likes to say it. And tight end isn't necessarily a part where we want to keep a big chunk of the salary cap at bay for quite some time. So I think they're totally fine putting him on the franchise tag for a year, seeing if he can continue to replicate his success, and then they'll continue to try and look for a long-term deal.
Yeah. Just to add on top of that, like I see when you're talking like the rankings of the players and that, like I would kind of put them into groups. You've got your top tier, then you've got your like the best of the rest type of like I would say Schultz is like the top of that second, just like from the top group, like the top group, like you're saying, there's your Kittles, your Kelce's, and your Ertz. Then you've got the next group. I would say, like out there, you've got Schultz is probably right up there amongst the best of that group for sure. Like,
I mean, you look at you mentioned it: Kelce, Kittle, Darren Waller, Mark Andrews,
Mark Andrews,
Dallas Goedert. Those are probably your upper echelon, your elite tight end. But then you've got these guys that aren't necessarily proven, but they're still productive, like a TJ Hawkinson, a Hunter Henry, a Dawson Knox, a Pat Freiermuth, Mike Gesicki, like Dalton
Kyle
Pitts
Pitts,
top of that list. I think David Njoku, who's not really a great receiving tight end, but he's a great blocker, and he provides for the run game. Dalton Schultz doesn't do that. He or at least not to the extent of a David Njoku, and he even had some money put on the table for him by Cleveland this past year as well. And I think that's where kind of looks at it from a leverage standpoint, saying I want Njoku type of money because my numbers are better. Well, Njoku's a better blocker than Dalton Schultz is ultimately.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was just one of the points I was about to make. It seems to be David Njoku has been the whole talking point of, but why Dalton Schultz is not signed a new contract, essentially, because he's looking to see where his value is. And I mean, if I was Schultz, I'd be in the same situation. Like, it's like, okay, like you're basically kind of using your stats to say, okay, well, I've done more for the team contribution wise, etc., etc. Like, even though Njoku, like you said, is a much better blocker for the run game and that, and clearly, and he's really good at it. But people will kind of see more what production they do, like catches, yards, touchdowns, etc. That's what it seems to be more stand out for people.
Yep, it moves the needle. That's what gets people paid.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, it's all about the run blocking.
And same could be said what happened years ago when it came to Ezekiel Elliott's contract when Todd Gurley signed his, because he caused, if it wasn't for Todd Gurley, Zeke would have not got that massive like contract that he got, because he sees himself, it's like, well, okay, I am given more production than Todd Gurley, I feel as though I'm more valued more than that. I deserve this. So it's kind of, it's like players are it's all day-to-day comparison.
Yep.
Every day, all year round.
Well, it's come back to bite the Cowboys on a couple of occasions, just based on the fact of the market continuing to grow for the specific position group. I mean, look at where the Cowboys could have been if they would have signed Dak Prescott a couple of years prior. I mean, his 6-year or whatever it was, the 4 years, $160 million deal wouldn't have been as steep. The 5-year, $90 million deal for Zeke wouldn't have been as steep if they would have paid him an offseason beforehand. This is one of those occasions where they kick the can down the road, and it's either going to work out for him. Dalton Schultz is going to be another productive player, but he won't take that next step. But imagine if Dalton Schultz takes that next step, he is considered as an elite tight end. You're going to have just as much trouble bringing him back, bringing him and making him a part of the team and signing him long-term next year, because he's going to have the leverage. He's going to have the market playing in his factor. And then you're going to, instead of looking at putting him on an $11 million deal, you're looking at him for a $15, $16, $17 million deal a year instead. I mean, that's what's scary about this whole situation, is you don't want it to come back to bite you, but you also want him to play well. So it's a double-edged sword. You want him to be worth that, but you just can't necessarily see that happening if they don't get a long-term deal heading into this deadline tomorrow.
It does generally feel like it's nearly a lose-lose situation by end of next season, regardless. Like, do we overpay if he plays well, or do we miss out on a tight end?
Yeah,
like it's like, and Lauren's disappeared, unfortunately.
He's having connection issues, I suppose.
Is it? But yeah, so it's like you said, it's a double-edged sword. It's like you do so well, then you have to overcompensate. But if you don't, then obviously we're going to be missing out on that safety blanket. So it's like, and it's happened to us so many times. Like Byron Jones, an example.
Yeah,
like
that's a good one.
Like, I mean, you can't even recall how many players over the past 10 seasons. Like, you could really think of what players we regrettably let go and have actually done well for themselves after that. So
Amari Cooper, I can see that happening.
Oh God, no! I don't even want to.
I thought we were talking safeties. Don't bring up.
We're still technically in the news and updates right now.
That's the thing too. Is, I mean, even with Amari specifically, like, the jury's still out on that. He could go and lay an egg in Cleveland. Who knows? Just knowing what we know about Amari Cooper and what he is from a player standpoint and where he is in his carear, I don't see that happening. I see him having a good year in Cleveland, no matter who ends up being the quarterback.
Exactly. I think if it's going to be Jacoby Brissett, then I think he'll do well with him. I think he will.
Yeah. Even when you go back to his Alabama days, I mean, that's when I loved him. I've got 2 jerseys of Amari Cooper, so that says it all. But in other news and updates, we've also had an addition, and we'll talk about the loss as well. Malik Jefferson from Texas Longhorns is joining the team. So he's been a bit of a journeyman, Mr. Suitcase, that's for sure. 35 games he's played since 2018. What are you thinking, Kyle? This more of a roster fill for the linebacker position and maybe special teams?
You know, I don't think it is. I think this is a low risk, high reward sort of deal for a position that you knew lacked depth totally. I mean, you go into the season with your healthy linebackers being Micah Parsons, Leighton Vander Esch, and Luke Gifford as returners. Yeah, you've got a couple rookies kind of sprinkled throughout. You've got a couple young guys. You're hoping Jabril Cox can get back into the fold as a second-year guy too. But the hope, or at least the plan around that linebacker spot has been hope that these guys stay healthy and that they can all contribute. There has not really been anybody concrete coming into that linebacker room. This is a low-risk signing, I think, for the Cowboys. This is, in terms of Malik Jefferson, guy who played at Mesquite Poteet High School, not too far from where the Cowboys are located here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So he played his high school football within reach and is coming back to his hometown where he had a lot of success, home state where he had a lot of success, like you mentioned, played his college ball at the University of Texas, was an all Big 12 player throughout his time down in Austin, and then was taken in the 3rd round. But his journeyman career does provide some red flags. He's had injuries. He's been on 6 different 5 teams, but 6 teams changed because he went to the Chargers and then he left and went to the Titans and then he went back to the Chargers. And all of that happening over the course of 6 years. And he got drafted in 2018, or 5 years. 2018 was when he got drafted. So the fact that he's got all of these teams and all of these journeyman experiences already makes things a little bit concerning on whether or not he can stick with your roster. But if he doesn't, then it's not necessarily a huge loss. You sign him on, see what he can do, and then he can work from there. So I like the signing. And you mentioned that there was a loss. They had to cut Jaquan Hardy, running back. Yeah, second-year man out of Tiffin in order to make the roster spot and get it back down to 90 prior to going to camp. But I don't think this is all they're going to do from a linebacker spot. I would anticipate they evaluate him, they see what's happening, and then they may even add another name into that group before they get to Oxnard or even while they are in Oxnard.
Yeah, because I tend to feel the Cowboys linebacker core, even though you've got Parsons, Cox, and LVE, it's still probably numbers-wise the shallowest about the whole groups in that defense. Like we've got plenty of defensive ends, plenty of defensive tackles, plenty of corners, plenty of safeties, which I never thought I would ever say in the past couple of years. But it seems to be now the linebacker core seems to be like the lowest number. But we're starting to kind of making that trend. But if there's one person that can actually make diamond in the rough spot, come out and ball out, is Dan Quinn. So, I have every faith on that. And we saw that last season with some players that came into the fold, like because he had some good games. He was a really small contract. Then there was the Jalen Kearse as well. Like people, we just kind of like. We kind of originally thought this guy would just be more of a roster filler, but no, it ended up being a massive contribution towards the team. So, I'm now paying attention to any player that we do bring in, because it seems to be like the ones that so low on the radar are the ones that are going to surprise you the most now.
Yeah. And you've got a great point in that regard specifically is I don't want to put that kind of expectation on a Malik Jefferson just based off the fact that he has struggled so much with so many different NFL organizations. But not only did they do that with Jalen Kearse last year, where he was a special teams guy, had bounced between Minnesota and Detroit, and then he ended up in Dallas, and now all of a sudden he's a top tight end or a top safety that, if he does have another great season, could potentially be a Pro Bowler. If he does the same thing he did last year, he may even be in the conversation as a Pro Bowler. I would also throw Joe Witt Jr. into that conversation on the defensive side of the ball too, as somebody who makes an impact from a linebacker standpoint. Because Dan Quinn, certainly, if he gets his hands on these defensive guys, they're going to make an impact at some point, whether it be special teams, preseason, doesn't matter. He's going to have them playing at a high level, but it's Joe Witt Jr. too that kind of helps elevate those guys into roles where they feel comfortable and they can really succeed. And especially when your third line of linebackers, you only played a couple three linebacker sets last year. Most of the time you were in the nickel, you were playing 2 linebackers. You weren't really utilizing that a ton. But when you do have to get into the depth of your linebacker, it's Story Jackson, it's Devin Harper, it's Aaron Hansford. It's these guys that are extremely unproven. Let's give this Malik Jefferson an opportunity to see if he could be a solidified veteran on the back end of that depth chart that can provide some meaningful snaps and maybe, of course, on special teams as well.
Yeah. He's a day 2 pick, so you should expect some talent from him. And as you've said, Kyle, it all depends on the scheme that you go to. You've got to find that right fit. You can have guys that come out top 10 and they just go to the wrong scheme and they're asked to do something completely wrong or completely alien to them, and they just can't adapt to the league. So something like, Quinn and Whit, as you say, will probably bring them up. Should get them in positions that help use their strengths, minimize their weaknesses, and gives us as much playing time as possible. And you're not investing the same amount of money you would be with a guy like Anthony Barr, who ultimately you might end up actually having to cut for the first week so that you don't have to pay the full season of his vested salary.
Yeah. And just to continue on as well, mind, with the linebacker position, because we'll get your take on this, Kyle, since we haven't got it. We wrote as well a little piece on this particular player, is Christian Sam from the USFL. So they really hit hard on the linebacker position. I mean, it's ironic that, when you think of special teams, the first thing that pops into your head is linebacker position. So it is something that coincides with all of this. It is an interesting move to take, a play from the USFL. He's, shown his worth somewhat in a lesser division. He got their team or helped their team to get to the playoffs. But what's your take on the Christian Sam addition also on top of this?
Yeah, I think that has a chance to be a little bit more so of a camp body and maybe a little more than that. I want to give him some credit. I mean, he played well with the New Orleans Breakers in that USFL and helped them to a playoff run in the league. And I mean, he was like 17th, I think, in the league in tackles last year and had like 8 tackles for loss. I mean, he played really well after bouncing around a little bit in his own right. But I like the thought process of getting those linebackers. You mentioned special teams units. I've talked with McCarthy. I've talked with John Fossil about this before. They love tight ends and they love linebackers for their special teams units. They said you can't have too many 6'4", 6'3", 215, 225-pound guys on your football team, because that's where your athleticism can be so much utilized or so far utilized on special teams throughout the season that it's going to help you out in the long term in terms of rotations and defensive snaps and things like that along the way. So I think he's another guy that he's going to get some chances in the preseason. He will see playing time, Christian Samuel. I think so. It's whether or not he takes advantage.
Yeah, I think that's a tougher one for me than the Jefferson move. Like you say, I mean, he is a good tackler. And I mean, he did throw up 28 reps on the bench, so it does show his power.
He's got some strength. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's got some strength. It's just the rest of it is whether he can crack it, like you say. Go on, sorry, Lon.
The odds are stacked against him. I mean, one of the problems way back in the 90s when we had NFL Europe, World League and all that is
don't talk about that.
No, but playing summer ball, guys like Dwan Hawthorne, James Whalen, who were allocated by the Cowboys, when they came back after playing 10 games, having a training camp for NFL Europe, playing 10 games, your body's gone through that you normally would pick up during a regular NFL season. You got 2-3 weeks to recover, and then you go into a full training camp, and your body's not recovered, so it's already worn down. Okay, you're going in maybe as a third or fourth string. You're trying to prove yourself, but you can't take any days off when you're a third or fourth string. You've got to try and do whatever it is to get on that field, whether it's special teams, it's excelling in the little playing time that you have. So this is the problem with having these summer leagues. I think in some respects, it showcases your talent, but you're behind the 8 ball when you actually get signed to an NFL roster and get moved up.
It's funny that you kind of mention that, Lauren. Like, I mean, I had the opportunity to talk to Dawson Deaton before he got drafted, who got drafted to the Cleveland Browns, and he was talking
Texas Tech, wasn't he?
Yeah, Texas Tech center, offensive lineman.
Yeah,
really nice guy, really humble and stuff, and literally lives down the road from the Star in Frisco. So he's literally a local boy, and he was kind of talking about like how off-season programs are kind of like they're trying to replicate like pretty much game scenarios and everything, not just technique and all that, and get to what like all those staff. He's not working with Duke Merriweather, but he's working with other offensive lineman staff. It's more local within in Dallas right now, but he was kind of going into depth in terms of like how things have just like from the step up between college to an off-season program going into the leagues and stuff like that. It really kind of prepares you up. So it shows you like, I know you're talking like the summer camp stuff like that. It was like you're going from one league to the other and that. Whereas here for his transition, it's like they're trying to like really amplify the intensity before going into the league, and rightly so. So it just shows you like preparation is everything now.
Yeah, that is true. So yeah, I mean, apart from that, camp is a couple of weeks away. We noticed Dallas Cowboys said they sent a tweet out, and they said, if you see this, it means we're at Oxnard. So I sent one back with a cocktail glass saying, yeah, send us one of these while you're at it, because we don't get that California or Dallas sunshine over here. Although the weather has been nice.
I need to get myself a wee cocktail machine so I can make myself some cowboy Ritas. That's what I need to do.
There you go. Yeah, you need the cowboy. I can use a cowboy Rita. Have you seen how hot it is in Texas recently?
I've seen the temperature. Yeah.
It's supposed to get worse right before we leave for Oxnard. There's a forecast out there that it would hit like 114 or 115.
Wow.
Like right before we leave for Oxnard. But yeah,
and high humidity as well.
Oh yeah. We don't get a break
standard
from the humidity either. So it's pretty rough right now.
Some people. Yeah,
it's only 90 degrees right this second. It's only 90. It's a beautiful day. I can go out. I can maybe put a light jacket on. It'll be nice.
Light jacket and 90 degrees? Are you kidding?
That's right. That was a stretch. It was a joke because everything else has been 105 so far.
Yeah.
Here's our next week: 100, 102, 102, 102, 104, 102, 104, 104, and then 106.
And people ask me why I want to move to Texas, and I'm like, that's exactly why. I love the heat. I love the heat.
Yeah,
I love the heat too. This is different, though. I'm telling you right now, this is crazy.
It's always fun.
We'll swap places with Kyle. Quite happy.
Oh, I have. I'll do it a heartbeat. I'll tell you something. The worst thing that I've ever done in the heat is going to the Turkish Riviera. And that was like 120, and I was wearing a full-on Scottish kilt for a wedding. That did not last long. The kilt did not last more than 15 minutes. I tell you that.
Yeah. I always like coming to like going to Dallas, like winter there, in the winter time, and everyone's wearing bobble hats and jackets, and we're on shorts and t-shirt. We're like, are you joking? This is our summer in the UK.
This is great. What are you talking about? And I'm like over here freezing. I've got like gloves
on. No. Kyle, hands down. When I'm over in December, I'm over for the Colts and Texans game, and hands down, I'll probably be walking about in shorts, and everyone's going to be wearing winter jackets, and everyone's going to look at me. It's like, what the hell?
Why are you putting sun cream on?
Yeah, exactly.
I sunscreen, you name it.
Yeah. Putting like the stick on your face, on the cheeks, and people are like, what? And you're like, no, this is summer in the UK. This is a nice day. But let's get into it then, right? Let's talk about the safety position and get through these players. I want to start first of all with what I would like to call, I don't know. Yeah, it's got to be the most improved player, I think.
You're probably right. I don't want to try and do that one.
That nasty.
We'll go with the guy, first of all, on the list. I think that we'd all have to call surprise player of the year, which is Jaron Kearse, 28 years old. He was taken in the 7th round of the 2016 draft from Clemson to the Vikings, bounced over to the Lions, came to the Cowboys last year. He done so well that the Cowboys have given him a 2-year, $10 million deal, which is basically, that deal is more than his entire career earnings. He's 3.7 on the cap this year. But I don't know what you guys think, but I certainly do. I think he's worth every penny.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually took on the role that we'd brought Keanu Neal in for, the sort of hybrid safety linebacker. He actually limited the amount of snaps that Keanu Neal was playing because of the play that he was making, and Keanu Neal wasn't doing the same in his limited opportunities. So, he's made the most of it. And again, it's about finding that scheme that fits you. So credit to Dan Quinn and Joe Whitt for bringing them up.
Yeah. I put out a tweet yesterday just asking who, and I was curious about the answer myself because I don't really have one that sticks out, but I asked who is the most underrated player on the Cowboys roster going into training camp. And he was probably the most popular answer. It was all over the place. I got a lot of DeMarcus Lawrence, Anthony Brown, Jordan Lewis, and most of the time it was the defensive side of the ball. Some Zeke, people think that Zeke's been underrated, which if he's healthy, I kind of agree in that regard too.
Definitely.
But I would put Jalen Kearse up at the top of that list. Last year, and we talked about it earlier in the show here, I mean, you thought he was a roster filler. You thought he was a camp guy. And he came in, and not only did he earn a starting job, but then he started playing well during that starting job. And then once he started playing well with that starting job, they put him they put the green dot on his helmet, and he started coordinating the defense. I mean, having a guy who came out of nowhere to play better when he had the green dot on his helmet and allowed the rest of the defense to flow freely, it was extremely valuable, I think, for Dan Quinn in his first season as the defensive coordinator, and it only could get better from there. I think he's going to have a phenomenal season. Had the most tackles by a safety since Barry Church in 2014. He's got a chance to up that. I think he had 92 tackles. He could absolutely up that, and if he does, like I said earlier in the show, there's no reason he shouldn't be in the Pro Bowl conversation. I mean, there's been a longing for a safety in this organization. It has been so long that they have not had a safety that's a legitimate contributor. And not only did they find it in the most unlikely sort of ways, but even on the two-year, $10 million contract, he's relatively cheap compared to some of the other top safeties in the NFL. That's not a high number for the safety market, which luckily he only had the 1 year to go off of, or else he might have had more leverage against the Cowboys as well. But now he's here for the next 2 seasons. He could really grow with this defensive scheme, and they allow him to really utilize his strengths the majority of the time and make him a better player as well.
And it is kind of ironic as well that, you're talking about the tackles, something that has gone unnoticed as well, which I think is a huge notch in his belt, is look at his missed tackle rate. He's got 4 missed tackles on the year with a missed tackle rate of 3.9. I mean, a 3.9% missed tackle rate is just how? How is that possible? And then when you look at his snap count, he's very rarely used. It's like hardly any snaps as a free safety, the overhang or the bracket safety. The majority of it is literally in the box or at the line. So he's there in the thick of it all, doing the hard work, and he's missing hardly any tackles. I think that's the biggest part of his game that people don't really talk that much about.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's part of the reason why Malik Hooker was an exciting signing for me this offseason is the fact that last year you were trying to find a role for Kearse initially. I mean, the first 6 games of the year, he was playing in the box, but he would also back up a little bit. You kind of didn't necessarily know where he fit best, but then he kind of blew up and found a rhythm. Same thing with Malik Hooker. Once they established Kearse as that strong safety, the guy that they can bring down into the box, he's more of a punisher, a tackler, a guy who doesn't miss tackle, like you mentioned. Malik Hooker could play freely over the top as your center field safety, and that's where he saw the majority of his snaps along the way toward the back half of the season. I think that's a huge proponent to this defense heading into training camp, where they know their roles, they know what to do from a fundamental standpoint. They're going to have those guys pairing back and forth. I think the fact that both of them are back and both of them are healthy this season, because remember, Malik Hooker was not healthy last year going into training camp. They have a fully healthy offense. Exactly, for the first game, and then he finally came on for that Chargers game. The fact that both of them are fully healthy and together and already know their roles established and have those established from last season, I think it's going to play very quickly into the hand of Dan Quinn.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a nice segue to move on to Malik Hooker, because, I mean, this is a first-round pick from 2017 from the Buckeyes as well. And this is another guy on a 2-year deal. He's 2.6 mil on the cap this year, which, again, like you've said, it's hardly anything for a safety. And when you look at it, Malik Hooker, as you say, was injured last year. And, really for the Colts, I kind of feel for him a bit, because he had just ongoing injuries, always Achilles or ankle injuries. So always put him out. But as we were looking back through it, this is one of the very few seasons since he's been drafted where he's come in now into the season healthy. And I think that's a big thing, like you say, that he's going to be able to have a full camp, full working with the safeties, the safety group and the coordinators and everything. That's massive for him. And, like as that, and I made myself quite vocal on this, that I was like, oh, come on, last year I was like, get Malika, please get him. And then
you were very vocal about it. I think we all were. I think we pretty much did nearly a whole 45-minute segment of why we should sign Malik Hooker.
Because he's just like that perfect, that center fielder. And I know he got an interception in the game and it was kind of a bit of a gimme, but that's kind of an example, really, of where Malik Hooker lies, just as that center fielder type safety. And I like him. I think he's got a lot to give.
I've got a comment a wee question in the comments here. So DG Dogs just asked, what odds would you give Marquis Bell to make the team?
Yes.
Because this was one of the guys that always seemed to pop up in a lot of fantasy drafts and stuff like that, and late in the round. And I was really happy with the fact we managed to get him undrafted. So it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this, Kyle.
I really like Marquis Bell to a certain extent because of his playmaking ability. His straight line speed is phenomenal. I mean, you saw that throughout the draft process. You saw it in OTAs, and then of course minicamp as well, where he had probably the play of the week, and they had the pick six. I really do like his story. I like his work ethic. He comes out of Florida A&M as a guy. Yeah, I actually read that article from Mike, and it is a solid article. But I think
thank you very much.
Yeah, I liked it. I like Marquis Bell to be a back end guy on special teams at first, but you also look ahead of him. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Donovan Wilson yet when talking about the safety position. And you remember 2 years ago, I mean, 2020 on the back half of the season, he was the biggest playmaker on that team.
He was.
The one that made all these turnovers, forced these turnovers, was actually the one lighting up offenses toward the back half of the season. He went relatively quiet last year. He's back again. He'll be in the rotation, fully healthy this offseason as well. So I think it's going to be tough for him. I also really like the improvement I've seen from Tyler Coyle as well, second-year undrafted free agent out of Purdue. I really like the way that he's developed, and he's kind of fallen into a bit of a role as well. There are some good young safeties that I say make the team on special teams especially, and I think it's going to be a competition between Coyle and Bell, and whoever loses that battle – I'd be shocked if they stuck around, because I think they would be highly sought after on an open market for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, that covers those two quite nicely. I mean, what is ironic with Marquis Bell is, like, I never really understood when you watch the tape on him, why he was at Florida A&M. Why not? And especially when you're in, the Florida market over there. Like, why was he not at a better school? I don't know. Was he overlooked? Was it missed? I never really understood
he was kind of a late bloomer in terms. He'd always had the speed, but the size wasn't necessarily there, and he finally bulked up. And by the time he got to the point where he could play Power 5 football, I think he just elected to stay at Florida A&M. It was a good fit for him, and I mean, it worked out. He's in the NFL. It's not like he had done anything that hurt his stock. One thing I will say about Marquis Bell that hasn't been talked about a ton, he's very stiff. He doesn't move side to side very well. That's kind of what I was talking. His straight line speed is great. When he can,
lateral speed,
exactly. He's fine, but when he's really moving side to side, he rounds it a little bit. He's a little slow, which for a center field safety,
it's not
it's vital. It's very vital.
Exactly. For a guy like Jalen Kearse, if you're going to fill in the back half of his role, you can do that. I think he's going to be in the box. I think he's going to be a guy that would fill like the same role Jalen Kearse does for the first team. I think Bell would be a guy who could do that on the second team until he gets his lateral movement a little bit down. But I mean, for instance, I was watching, I know he's a friend of y'all's show as well, but Barry Church, I mentioned him a minute ago. We were watching practice together during OTAs, and I looked at Barry, and I was like, he looks stiff. He goes, all right, let me look at him. I watch a rep, and then he goes, oh, he's really stiff. Like, I mean, it was notable that a safety saying a safety is stiff. Like, he didn't necessarily move as well as he possibly could have. That might have been what hindered his draft stock. His 3-cone, his shuttle were not very good. in the draft process as
Yeah.
well. I think that's what ultimately pushed him out of draftable position. But the Cowboys, you saw what kind of money they gave to him from a contract standpoint. They wanted him. They were interested in him, and ultimately he ended up here.
Yeah, because he's on a 3-year UDFA rookie deal. So, I mean, like you say, it's quite substantial.
All of the money.
Yeah, exactly. Follow the money. And I mean, Marquis Bell, because it is a funny one. I didn't really think about the stiffness, because if you're not going to be, if you do have that and you're rounding off at the top, then really you need to have like really high level instincts and IQ. And he's not really that either. So now it kind of makes sense a bit more. Yeah,
he's a playmaker. That's the fun part about him. He's a playmaker. He'll game out. He'll be one of those guys. He might be a fan favorite in the preseason too. He's going to have a pick. He'll have some big play against the Broncos in the first preseason game, and everybody's going to be like, "This is the next guy," and then he'll get blown up like 2 days later.
We do that. We do it every year, don't we?
Everybody does it. I do it too. I'm on the sideline. I'm like, I love Sean McCune. That guy's my dude.
Yeah,
and
I always said about him. I said,
I knew it from the beginning, and then he got hurt, and I was like, no.
yeah.
Well,
don't even make
he does have a Cowboys legend helping him as well, because obviously he was I think he's the nephew of Everson Walls, his roommate at college as well. So I know Everson Walls has been talking about it on the Mix Shots podcast, has been talking about how he's taking him under his wing as well. So there's maybe a little bit of off-field coaching going on there as well. So
one of the coolest parts about, and I haven't said this on anything on air yet, so this is an exclusive for you guys.
I like it.
So prior to the draft process, I got to meet all the 30 visit guys and do interviews for them throughout, and it just kind of got to like see them face to face, and it was a really cool thing set up by our scouting department. And he was one of the 30 visit guys, and I got to just have a conversation with him back and forth, and I was like, have you ever heard of Nate Newton? Because Nate, of course, went to Florida A&M as well, and he's a good friend of ours. He's on our pregame shows, on our podcast and stuff like that. I love Nate. And I was like, he was like, yeah, of course. Like, how could you go to Florida A&M, go to FAMU, and not hear of Nate Newton? He's now a member of the Black College Hall of Fame. And I was like, oh, well, he's in the building quite a bit. And I called him like in the middle of the interview and gave him the phone and got to have the connection of Marquis Bell and Nate Newton on the phone back and forth. It was really cool. Good moment. And Nate, of course, gave him some pep talk, as he does for anybody. It was a lot of fun.
And if anyone can excite you, Nate Newton can.
Oh man.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But here's a question though. While we were talking about Donovan Wilson, now obviously he missed a chunk of the middle of the season with some injuries. His role is quite defined as well, as the box safety. Now he's in a contract year. Do you think he's done enough to solidify himself for a further contract going forward, or is it literally all based on this year? He's on that seesaw at the moment.
I think it's pretty up in the air for Donovan Wilson.
That's
because
how I feel.
Other teams might look at his value higher than the Cowboys do right now because of what he did in 2020. Because, I mean, he came out and had a fantastic look at, the Aggie talk.
I know.
Rob Phillips isn't here. We're good to go. He's our resident Aggie at the moment.
I know. We're banned from talking to each other.
That's good. I think the way that 2020 ended keeps him in the conversation of bringing him back, but he would need to replicate some of that success. If he has another quiet year and then Curse and Hooker and these guys come in and play significant amounts of time and snap counts, and then they have the production and Donovan Wilson doesn't necessarily do it, they're going to have to save money somewhere, and that would be one of the places in which they would probably do it. So I think it's a big year for Dono to really find a role again on that defense. And remember, his success came with Mike Nolan. It didn't come with Dan Quinn. So
that's true.
Maybe that plays into the factor as well. And with a new staff, he's got to find a way for him to be successful in his own right.
It's kind of so
Yeah.
strange to actually put that sentence together, having that, and I know it's
Having
not
success. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, like
Uh,
yeah, Mike Nolan.
the
I
fact
know.
that we
Yeah.
haven't had 4 defensive coordinators in the last 4 years, though, is a
Mhm.
really big deal because it would have gone from
Yeah.
Marinelli to Nolan to Quinn to the new hire. You would have had 4 straight defensive coordinator switches within 4 off seasons. In fact, you have like a little bit of continuity on the defensive
Yeah.
side of the ball is something that is massive to be able to keep in mind going into this season, especially if Dan Quinn could do that with one season. If he could turn around a defense in one season, imagine what he could do with a full offseason full of
Yeah.
healthy pieces that are all returning as well.
I mean, not just that Dan Quinn as well, but all credit to the other coaching staff as well. Your positional coaches, like you've got Adam Durday, the defensive line coach, etc., etc. And was previously before, like all the names that were under Mike Nolan was a bit more. Well, I wouldn't say more star-studded, but you had like Jim Sula, who's now the head coach of Rain Fire in the German leagues now. He's now back in Germany now. I mean, guy who used to be the 49 Corners head coach. So it's like you've got all these names, but they just didn't materialize as we expected. And we're bringing in guys that Dan Quinn knows personally, he's worked with before. And it's all about keeping that, keep the ball rolling, getting that continued progression going.
And I think, like Kyle said about continuity, I think when it comes to continuity, when defensive backs, I think that matters most.
Yeah,
because the scheme's really important.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree completely. Because I mean, from a front seven standpoint, a lot of it is plugging gaps and holes, but those holes are going to change every play. So it's a lot of reactionary. Whereas a coverage scheme, it's a lot of pre-planned and a lot of back and forth and give and take. There's a lot of stuff that develops in the secondary as opposed to its instant reaction in the front seven. So I would actually agree with you in that fact wholeheartedly. I think having that continuity on the back end, especially after it was the first year you feel comfortable with your corners too. I mean, I know y'all have talked about corners already throughout this positional series, but it's the last year we were talking about we have to get a first round corner. We got to fill a spot and we got to find a way to upgrade our secondary. And we didn't have safeties, but now you feel comfortable on both ends and you have another offseason with your defensive coordinator. I really do feel confident about it.
It just shows you when you've got the right coaches in at the right time and they can just transform how players can just like take in information and become better players just overnight. It's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, the next guy, we'll look at because we'll try and get this wrapped in an hour for you is Israel Mukwamu, Gamecock. So he's from South Carolina, taken in the 6th round. Obviously still on his rookie deal, but he kind of spent some time last year as well on injury. So we have really a 0 sample size right now. He was, although he's, posted as having games, he hasn't really done anything.
Yeah.
For me, I really want to see him succeed because I think that he does have some value to offer. But I just wonder with what's behind him and in front of him, he seems to be this guy that's just like, not the forgotten man, but like, where do you fit? If we keep you, where do you fit? It's so difficult. He's the one guy that if you were to give me, say, who's on your final 53, once I get to play number 53, he's the guy I'm looking at thinking, what do I do here? It's so tricky. What do you think, Kyle? Do you think
you bring up a great point because, we're sitting here talking about the excitement of Marquis Bell and Tyler Coyle. And those were undrafted guys. And then you've got Israel Mukwamu, who's entering his 2nd year, and he was a drafted guy, 6th round pick.
Invested, but still.
6'4", 205 pounds. He's got this massive frame. And he played a role on special teams, but he only had 20 defensive snaps, and 16 of those came in week 18 against the Philadelphia Eagles when the entire practice squad got on the field. Everybody got on I almost got a chance to get some reps in.
I was going to say, I think I seen you on the start sheet.
Yeah, I had at least a helmet set aside for me. That's the thing is he has, you talk about 0 sample size. It's absolutely 0 sample size. And I think it's a big year for a couple of these guys in the secondary that were drafted in 2021. And that's Kelvin Joseph. It's Nason Wright at the cornerback spot.
Yes.
And Israel Mukwamu. Those are 3 guys that aren't given anything, 2 of which were top 100 picks in the cornerback spots.
Yeah.
But then Israel Mukwamu, I would throw into that category because he is a Dan Quinn guy. Well, if Dan Quinn can't use him, where do you use him? And so it's a big season for him to either find a way into the rotation or to really be as good of a special teams player as possible. The only problem with him, and it's been a criticism, I've been on top of it since he was at South Carolina, the guy doesn't want to hit. He doesn't want to step up. He's
does
afraid
avoid
of contact. You can see it. Look at the preseason. Look at some of the special teams tackles he made.
Yeah.
He steps up and then he's on his back heel because he wants to absorb the hit and not power through a hit.
Wants
and that's
to roll the player over is how he seems to be his tackle style.
That's got to be something. That's got to be a flip of the switch. That's got to change for him if he's going to be successful at the safety position. Maybe they move him back to corner. I don't see that because the cornerback room's pretty stacked full of guys too. But making that switch, a positional switch from a 6th-round pick, you don't expect him to do much in year 1. He was inactive the majority of the time. But now as we get into year 2, you have to find a way to get on the field or else things are going to get really tough really quickly.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, during the OTAs last year, the training camp as well, there were positive reports from him. But then when you saw him, I think it was the Jacksonville game preseason, and he had the chance to make a legal hit that would have lit up the receiver.
Yep.
Yeah. But he sort of just stood up and let the guy make the catch or something like that. And it just, I think he lost the confidence of the room at that point in time, because at that point in time, Curse hadn't established himself. You know, Curse was maybe, I think when we'd signed Curse last year, we were saying, oh yeah, he's probably going to be special teams. He might not even make it off the roster. Yeah. Curse got the opportunity because Mukwamu didn't do anything. And then, you know, he's ran with it. Mukwamu's sitting there languishing on in the background. He's got to change his attitude this year, otherwise he's probably not going to last on the roster. I mean, obviously the Cowboys have kept all the draft picks the last couple of years, but I mean, at some point you got to get some sort of return for it, and if you're not getting it from a guy like that, then it's time to move on.
That's a great point because and I saw this comment. I like this comment. I like that. I love that. The thing with you bring up a fantastic point about how that was before Jayron Kearse was even known to be a solidified guy at the safety position. That was it was an open door for Israel Mukwamu to say, "Here I am, world. You move me to safety. I can maybe find some snaps throughout the season." And he didn't take it. And now that when the door is closed, the window is shutting too. And you got to find a way to open both of those things back up if you're going to walk right through and make it easy on yourself as a safety in the NFL.
Yeah, I feel as well with Mukwamu. What scares me is that I think that if he doesn't crack it with the Cowboys and they decide to release him, you just wonder where does he go from there? Yeah. Because I just don't know how he would fit in other teams' rosters.
Yeah, it would probably. I would see them moving him back to corner. If on another not a lot of teams are going to utilize 6'4", 205 pound safeties that can't necessarily hit. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. They're probably not going to use those guys to the highest of their ceilings, but they could move him to corner, and he might be a serviceable corner. But I don't think they want to give up on him. That's the thing. I think they want him to hit. They want him to utilize that frame and that skill set that he brings from the SEC. And now that he's in the year 2 and he's had a year to grow, this is a big time for him to step up and to take the reins and really show that he belongs on the backside of that defense. Because if he doesn't do it this year, it's going to be really, really tough for him in the future.
Yeah, and there's a good point you made, is perhaps that's where it's come from, is because he's a safety from the SEC. He just hasn't been taught the finer parts of tackling, maybe, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's
he didn't have to tackle as a corner in the SEC.
Exactly.
He didn't have to.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
He was playing on the edge. You're playing coverage. You're batting down balls. Yeah, you might have to make a shoestring tackle, but you don't have to go head up on a guy. Corners don't have to do that unless they're blitzing off the edge, and he didn't do a ton of that during his time at South Carolina either. He's got to be able to do that on a consistent basis, not just once or twice. He's got to do it consistently.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, I know we'll run up your time here, but we'll just talk about the last guy, the Georgia Tech safety, Thomas. I said Georgia Tech, not Virginia Tech, Paul, before you get excited. He likes the Virginia Tech entrance with Metallica. That's all.
Oh, aye, of course.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it is.
I mean, who doesn't?
Well,
Yeah, who doesn't
yeah, I
love
know, it
Enter
is.
Sandman?
Can be a little bit of Metallica.
Yeah, it is a strong entrance. I will say that. Now he did take some snaps last year as well. Again, sample size is fairly small. But again, this is another guy. I think perhaps practice squad, especially the way the practice squad is increasing this year, and that they can bring the players in and out. Because it's changed slightly from the COVID rules. So I think that's a guy that might try and stash. I don't know what you think, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm probably right there with you. I think he may be one of those guys that kind of helps fill out the roster. I still think that there's a little bit of a distance there between guys like Marquis Bell and Tyler Coyle that are kind of in that same realm of guys at the safety position. But I never want to count a guy out, especially after last year. We learned our lesson with Jaron Curse. You brought him in. You're like, oh, is this guy even going to make the roster? Now I'm like, oh, maybe he's a Pro Bowler if he does again what he did last year this year. Like, so I don't necessarily want to really blow it up if I can help it. But yeah, I'm kind of right there with you initially.
Yeah. I don't know what your guys take, Paul Lone, on Marquis Bell, Tyler Coyle, or Thomas even. These three undrafted free agents, any of them making the roster? Practice squad guys?
I think Bell, if he can improve on his lateral speed, yeah, for sure. I mean, whether he'll be there for special teams, I think he's got definitely a good shot for making the special teams. But if anything, then he'll probably make the practice squad for development because he's been given that longer term deal. You kind of it's kind of more or less set in stone because if he's given that amount of contract, that obviously the Cowboys have invested in him to kind of say, okay, if he doesn't make the team, we'll put him in practice squad, give him that year to develop with the team and see how we go for the following season. Mm-hmm. So that's how I kind of think with that.
I think at the very least he's going to be practice squad, and he's a protected practice squad. I mean, you don't give $50,000 signing bonus and 200,000 guaranteed money if you're not thinking that you're going to keep him on the practice squad. Around. That's you're going to keep him around. It all depends on whether he continues to make plays not only in training camp but also on the field during the 3 preseason games, and he'll get plenty of time during these 3 preseason games as well. So if he can make the plays there and show that he's not just, I mean, how many guys do Kyle's reports, Dave Hellman's reports always say training camp, these guys made great interceptions today and all that, and then you go to this regular season and they don't step up, or it doesn't translate onto when the whistle goes for the full 60 minutes. So if these guys can actually translate that onto the field in game situations, then great, they're in. But they've got to show it. They're not going to rest on their laurels and rely on the fact that they've got this money.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I've got one question to ask for everybody here, right? And it's not to do with the safeties, but what would you say is going to be the most interesting player acquisition you're going to be most focused on? Well, not focused on, if it's going to be causing a lot of commotion during training camp.
I think kicker's probably the big one for me at the moment.
Kicker,
yeah. If we even get to see the kickers, that's the problem. We didn't get to see any of them. What are you talking? We didn't even get the chance to see anybody kick until like the last practice. It was like, all right, we'll throw you guys a bone. Here's Zerline coming off of a surgery. Like, have fun, guys. But yeah, that's a good one. I was thinking offensively, James Washington. I think James Washington is a very underrated addition this season. He's a guy who was a Blitnikoff Award winner at Oklahoma State. I mean, he wasn't just a finalist; he was an award winner in 2017. They drafted him high. They put him up with a healthy roster in 2019. He had nearly 800 yards receiving. That's what he needs. He needs something like that. He doesn't need to have 1,500 yards. He needs to have 600, 700 yards. And I think he could really add to that wide receiver room. And then defensively, I am super excited, mainly because I think it could go very much so one way or the other, to watch Dante Fowler Jr.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I like this.
Dante Fowler.
He could be really entertaining and really good. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this could be something to watch for, or he could completely go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, maybe this was a bad idea. So I think
Fowler you're going to get.
I think James Washington's going to stay right here. There's going to be a low ceiling but a high floor, whereas Dante Fowler Jr. is going to be as spread out as possible. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, the two guys I'm quite interested watching is Matt Walitsko. How are we going to utilize him in the offensive line? Is he going to be that swing tackle? How does he fit in rotation and stuff like that? But also, this is going to be one of my favorite picks from this year's draft is Big JR, John Ridgway. Is he going to be pushing?
Will he take over Bahana's role?
Exactly. That's what, as the one tick, that's what I'm very interested to see.
I had John Ridgway graded better than I had Bohanna graded coming out of school. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Bohanna didn't really do anything last year that was super impressive, but it's also not a very high flashy position group anyways. It's not like he's going to have
he's there to absorb as many linemen to block him. That's the main job.
Yeah. I'm interested in to see what John Ridgway. I'm also interested to see what he says. I just want to hear his quotes. Because they're fantastic. That's what I'm excited about.
Yes, especially after hearing the reports of him and Josh Ball going at it during was it OTAs or was it minicamp?
Yeah, that was rookie minicamp, wasn't it? It was outside.
Yeah.
It was actually. It was outside.
It was definitely outside because I remember Ridgway walking past us to go back. I'm trying to remember if that was OTAs or if it was rookie minicamp. I don't remember.
Or was it minicamp?
It was one of the two.
I just literally love that because he's already not even a week within the door and he's already shown the tenacity and aggression.
I'd rather him stay on the field and not walk to the locker room in the middle of practice. Yeah. But I do like the intensity. I love the effort.
Yeah.
I think it was OTAs because it was the day that you were doing all the media. It was the day you were doing all the media things because Shannon had talked about how Shannon was shepherding one of them, and
remember that.
Was standing there, and John Ridgway came in or whatever, and it was all.
He was setting up a camera to do a shoot, and Ridgway just walked past, and he was like, "That's weird. I guess practice is ending." And he walked out, and they were still in the middle of drills. So that was. You're right. It was OTAs.
And another one as well, I think you've got to think about with camp. I want to see, because we've talked about the offensive line position, and I've always said that once the season starts, forget about the development of offensive linemen. For me, offensive linemen, the big development time is the off season. Where we're at right now, because that's when they're doing the most work to try and get them on.
You're going to say Terrence Steele, aren't you?
No, Isaac Alarcon.
Yeah.
I want to see how far he's come along. I want to see where he's at because he could be in the outside guy, and it's that feel good story. He
can be that left guard if all things fall into place. He could.
Yeah. And then the only other guy for me, there's every guy,
but we know Tyler Smith's trying to play guard for now. Yeah. Until Tyron decide maybe he's I'm not. Touch wood, it doesn't go injured. Move Tyler out to left tackle, so that's. We kind of know what's going to happen if Tyron's not going to be there. So
I know this is your guy as well, Paul. Right, but I'm telling you, the really important year for this guy is Neville Gallimore. This is his third year. He's developed quite a lot, mind. When you look at him, he's looking.
Him and Osa look phenomenal shape.
Yeah. Two very different players in what they do, but I think Neville Gallimore, he's in that third year now. We need to see what he can do. He was injured, with that hyperextension injury on his elbow. So it's quite an important season for him. Very important camp.
I would say this. I would say that for the majority of the for the defensive line too. I mean,
True. I suppose,
you've invested top 100 picks in multiple drafts over the last 3 or 4 years on your defensive line.
Yeah.
This is where it starts trying to pull off. Like, how much is Osa Odigizua going to do in year 2? How much is Tristan Hill going to show? This is his
Tristan
contract.
Hill is a big one, yeah.
Huge one. His contract year for a second-round pick. I mean, Neville Gallimore, I agree. There was a lot of excitement that he would be a guy that could be a starter instantly. Carlos Watkins had a career year last year as a veteran.
Was a great season for him.
Sure, you're missing Randy Gregory, but everyone else is back, and you feel a lot better about the interior of your defensive line. I think we're going to be really excited about what we see in training camp. We're going to be very scared of the offensive line. I'm going to tell you that right now. We're going to be scared because that's already a question mark, is that offensive line. I think the defensive line is going to look really good, though.
I think we'll definitely see how far the O-line is going to do during the Chargers scrimmage. I think that's especially with their defensive front. Their front seven, how we're going to cope with what they're bringing to the table. So it'll be very interesting to see that.
And
having a quarterback like Herbert running around.
Yeah, exactly.
That will be the dress rehearsal game because it's the second week of the preseason. So
funny you say that. I was going to
dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you in like a 3-game preseason because we did have Mickey Spagnola on last week, and I was like. Because obviously last year we had the Hall of Fame game, so we had 4 preseason games. Yeah. So you know where it's going. But obviously with the 3-game, would you use the second game then? Yeah. As you dress rehearsal?
I would probably use the second game. You could use the third game because there's an extra week there before the opener. So you could use that if you really wanted to, but I expect them to use the second game, especially like you said, of having that front seven against you, and maybe as a bit of a, I don't know, maybe they don't want to go against that front seven. Maybe they want to maybe they would rather go against Seattle at home and do it that way instead of having Khalil Mack and Bosa breathing down your neck. So maybe that's what they do. But I think it'll be the second preseason game, but it'll be interesting to see.
All right.
Yeah, I think a couple of points. The offensive line, it's been good. If you follow Duke Manyweather on Instagram and Twitter, the amount of work that you're seeing, Tyler Biadasz, Terrence Steele, they're all putting in the work. So they're not away on holiday or anything like that at the moment. They're putting the work in. So hopefully, they're coming into camp ready to excel and actually make the most of their time. The other thing as well, Gallimore is learning as well. You see that he obviously took a page out of Kyle's How to Propose notebook as well, because he had the whole letters, the rows on the ground and everything. So,
Oh, no. Gallimore's watching film? No. That's funny.
But is there any more questions for Kyle? Because we're running up his time,
Just a wee brief one. It's more of an overall question from Joe from Italy. Big shout to Joe. What do you think of the linebackers? Just more of a general question, more about it.
Yeah, so we kind of addressed this at the early parts of the show, so be sure whenever this is posted, go back and watch the early parts, Joe. But I think it's very thin from a depth standpoint. I think
definitely
you have Micah Parsons, you have Leighton Vander Esch. You feel pretty confident about those two, especially this is the first fully healthy offseason Leighton's had after having
that's true.
Yeah, I was trying to add on top of that to say we were talking about players that were maybe underrated last year, and I thought LVE in the later part of the season was starting to find his feet again, like when we first drafted him. So
he's going to make a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, he might.
So. Oh, okay.
That would be.
I like that. I like that. I like that bit. I like that.
I think Leighton's looked great. I mean, from where I've seen him in OTAs, we only got one mini camp practice, but in the OTA practices, he was always in the right place at the right time. He was stepping up. He was plugging holes. He was disruptive all the way through. The only problem is they didn't have pads on. So it's a little bit different when you get the pads on, you go back into the game.
Especially for linebackers.
Exactly. I thought he was great last year as well. And I think he could be even better this year. But I would say for sure, depth-wise, it's a bit of a concern just because they added, of course, Malik Jefferson today. They've made some moves. I don't think they're done there yet. I think they will go and add somebody at some point. Remember, Malik Hooker was added 2 days into training camp last year. You can do that again this year with a linebacker instead. But I that's the only thing I'm really worried about. I like the growth of Jabril Cox. I like the future of the linebacker spot. You're not going to see a Damone Clark this year, but you'll see a Ron Bland. You'll see or Bland's a cornerback. I'm thinking of Oklahoma State, Devin Harper. Like he will probably see some playing time through the preseason as well. Story Jackson, undrafted free agent, Aaron Hansford in there as well. They've got some good youth there, but whether or not that's going to be a sizable contribution from those guys is still yet to be seen. So until that point, I still think you need to get another veteran in that room and solidify it as much as possible outside of maybe Malik Jefferson.
And Jabril Cox, he's looking good, I assume.
Yeah, he's working his way back. He didn't get into practices. He was still working on the bands, but he should be good to go. Should be is what we've been told by training camp. So hopefully he's there and he's ready to roll for Oxnard, because I'm excited about Jabril Cox as well. I think he could be a great contributor.
Yeah, absolutely. And because I know a lot of people, they always talk about ACL injuries, and for me, I think with the way medical has moved, like the technology and everything, the understanding of ACL tears, they're not what they used to be. When we talk about ACL tears 10 years ago, you'd be like, oh, that's the career over then.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a good sign. Now it's just another injury, which is just credit to all the medical personnel for sure.
Yeah, and it's not even a year long anymore. But we will tie things on a bow with you there. We'll let you go, Carl, because I know you want to get out into the sunshine in that 104-degree sunshine.
90 degrees today. It's going to be great. I'm going to go put on a jacket. I'm going to walk outside in a hoodie.
Right. Let me just check the temperature, what it is here in Scotland right now.
16, yeah. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is in American heat.
It's
in America.
58.
Celsius.
58. Yeah, 58 right now. And
that's
warm. That's warm for us.
Yeah, we got the fans on, yeah.
So when I get to Scotland, because I want to go to Scotland one day for sure, that basically everything's going to be cool, perfect weather, everything great.
No.
I heard you guys like drinks up there too, so that's fun.
Oh, who told you that?
Yeah. Told me.
They like the rain as well up there. They like the rain. They actually have the wet season.
So we'll see you right.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You wouldn't have to worry about paying for a drink. That's for sure if you're hanging about with us.
Yeah. Hey, well, we're coming over there. We're coming over there in force next year, so look out for that. Yeah, we got it all set up. We've got a package set up. But yes, we'll let you go, mate. But thank you very much for joining us on the season 3 finale. We'll try and get you in at some point, or even if we can't get you in before the season starts, we'll try and get it's one of my plans is to try and get everyone's 53-man roster predictions, and we'll see who is the closest. I got a feeling you will be, because you're always on the ball with that, Kai.
So last year I got 52 of 53 right, and it was the first time. It was my first time trying to actually guess it. So I felt pretty good. I think I missed one. It was like I can't remember who it was. It was like a D lineman or something. So I've got a good track record so far. We'll see if I can replicate it a little.
Yeah, we'll try and get yours.
Don't suppose it was Bradley and I, was it?
Oh, it might have been.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us had Bradley and I still making it the roster at that time.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Tiny arms, Bradley. But yes, we'll leave you with that. But thank you very much for joining us, Kyle. Yeah. And we'll speak to you again in when season 4 starts, which is next week. So there we go.
Awesome. Sounds good, guys. Appreciate you as always, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Take care. Have a good one.
See ya.
Cheers.
And there we go. Yes. The legend, that is. So here we are, guys. Next week it is season 4, episode 1. We're into training camp edition. Yeah, we're gonna take the shiny wrapper off everything.
Yep. So new background, new graphics,
everything.
The load. Well, we'll
you'll see.
Well, wait and see. But we're also, it's no longer going to be UK DC TV. It's just going to be the UK Cowboys fans TV. We're going back to the original basics. Keep it all about the fans. So, and that's what it's all about.
Yep.
So, not to try and segregate it from the actual fan group. We're just treating it all as one, and that's what it's all about.
That's right, baby. And while we're at it, make sure you go and follow all these dudes and dudesses. There's plenty of people to go and follow. They're all our friends who join us on the show and talk to us, which, by the way, we need to thank. We need to thank all of these people. There's people from all of these shows that have been on during season 3. It's been absolutely amazing. Do the read for me, someone.
Yeah, but guys, if you're planning on to Dallas Cowboys game this year, be sure to go check out cowboysexperience.com for meet and greet, tailgating, game day packages, and much, much more, where you get to meet players like Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, Michael Gallup, Micah Parsons, and many, many more. And don't forget, Hall of Famer Drew Pearson will be there and show. Guys, the guys at Cowboys Experience will treat you like absolute royalty. And for you to get an exclusive package, be sure to use the discount code UK Cowboys Tours. Guys, what do you get when you use the package?
You get free stuff. Don't be a clown. Use the code.
Yes. And then finally, thank you to everyone in season 3 that has joined us. We've done more episodes, 75 episodes in season 3. The most we've done in any season. And we'd love to thank all of you. It has, in fact, been over 3.5 million minutes of downloaded time on the podcast.
Man.
Yeah. Those people are amazing. Listening to us over there. We say it every week, and it's true. You are our MVPs. If you weren't joining us and interacting and inviting us into your homes, it's just a bunch of crazy British people talking about an American sport and sometimes getting drunk doing it.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that our American viewers, you guys can understand this. So, but hey. Kudos to everyone. Thank you for everyone to swing by and check us out. We're growing every day, and we hope to have you keep growing with us, grow the channel, and be part of our fan group.
And to thank you, we'll even try and do, I think, in season 4, we'll do some giveaways.
We need to do some more competitions. Absolutely,
we'll do that. We'll throw something free stuff in that we get, and it doesn't matter if you're watching from Italy, Mexico, America.
Yeah, we'll ship
for
it
everyone.
Out.
Yeah, we'll ship it out for you guys.
So there you go, Joe. You're in for the hunt.
So make sure to join us next week, season 4, episode 1, episode 206. Yes, that's right, baby. So I'm gonna let these guys sign out, and we'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend, folks.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Go Cowboys.
Okay.
Yeah, have a great week, guys. I'm away on vacation for the next couple of weeks, but I'll be back and ready and raring to go.
Lucky bugger.
I know. Check you out on the all-inclusive, huh? Have a great weekend, everyone.
Cheers.